Well, hello everyone, and thank you for being here. My name is Laura Thorns, and I work for the University Advancement and support interdisciplinary research and international programs. On behalf of Women in Philanthropy, I'm thrilled and welcome to have you at this session of Gather Conversations to Inspire. For those of you who might not be familiar with Women in Philanthropy, our mission is to connect and empower a community to elevate women and philanthropy at CSU. We recognize the power of women and strive to connect them with their passions at CSU so that through philanthropy, the world's biggest challenges can be addressed. The purpose of Gather is to spotlight women in the CSU community through a series of conversations so that we can be inspired by their work, their experiences, and their accomplishments. In a year where people across the state and the nation began to emerge from the pandemic and students largely returned to in-person learning, we've all been challenged and inspired. Many of our students never lost focus. They remained steadfast to their commitment to themselves, to their education, and to their future careers. And we are honored to have several of these students here today to share their experiences. So I'll just start with some introductions. First of all, we have Anna Perry, who is a second-year biochemistry student and is currently working in the USDA's National Laboratory for Genetic Preservation. We also have third-year student Najoni Hatch, who studies biomedical sciences and microbiology. She's very involved with CSU's Native American Cultural Center and is the undergraduate lab manager for Dr. Dominic David Chavez's Indigenous Land and Data Stewardship Lab. Natalie Montesino is a senior in international studies who recently studied resiliency in rural Japan and works as a storytelling intern for the College of Liberal Arts. And graduate student Katie Rossi is a PhD candidate in the graduate degree program in ecology with Dr. Francesca Cotrufo. She is studying the effects of human-induced environmental change in soil biogeochemistry. So we welcome everyone here and thank you for being here. I'd love to have each of you share a bit more about yourself. For example, where you're from and more about your area of study. Let's go ahead and start with Anna.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the introduction. So my name is Anna Perry. As mentioned, I'm a second-year student studying biochemistry. I'm the child of military parents, so I moved around a little bit. I lived in both Nevada and Ohio, but I primarily grew up in a small town in Ohio called Waynesville. In high school, I was really fascinated by biology, chemistry, genetics. I took like every science course I could take. And all of that led me to choose biochemistry as my area of study. But beyond my love of science, I really enjoy learning other languages and about other cultures. And I'm really passionate about sustainability and environmental issues. So based on those interests, I decided to minor in both Spanish and global environmental sustainability. And I'm planning to have a career in environmental research. And I think international collaboration is really important. So I've chosen my majors and minors really based on all of those factors. Outside of academics, I like to stay involved in the campus community. I'm a peer mentor for the Eco Leaders program, which is a program dedicated to educating students in the residence halls about sustainability and environmentally responsible behavior. I was an eco leader last year, and it was one of the best experiences. So now I get to help guide and provide support for this year's group of eco leaders and other students. I'm also a peer mentor for the honors program, so I get to support more awesome first-year students and help them in their transition to college and provide them with support and resources. As mentioned, I work in the USDA's National Lab for Genetic Resource Preservation, and that's kind of a recent thing for me. I started that in December. The lab has a mission of preserving biodiversity and focusing on genetic resources with the growing threat of climate change and other impacts like that. So I really love working there. I help test seed viability. So I get to see a lot of different seeds, tons of different plants, and it's taught me a lot about biodiversity, which is what I want my career in environmental research to really help protect. And then I also work as a student coordinator for the Association for Undergraduate Education at Research Universities, which is a mouthful, I know. But that's a really cool organization run by CSU. The goal is to bring together a network of research university leaders to advance undergraduate education. So I get to help support that mission in my work. And I get to learn a lot about what university leaders are doing and their work and what that looks like, which I love. And beyond that, I keep busy. I am a representative of my college's college council. So we decide kind of where student fees are going. So I really like to help in that and make sure that money is being used responsibly. I'm a student and I care about where my money is going. So that's awesome. And then I also keep up to date with all the sustainability groups on campus and volunteer with them when I can. And then I just try to stay active by going outside and enjoying everything CSU and Fort Collins has to offer. So that's a little about me.
Fantastic. You're very busy. Glad you're in this group. Najoni, would you share a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I would love to. I'm outside, so maybe you can hear the birds. There were some sirens going on earlier, so hopefully that doesn't happen again. But yes, my name is Najoni Hatch. I'm a third-year student, and I'm pursuing a biomedical science degree and a microbiology degree, and I also have minors in chemistry and indigenous studies. So I'll be graduating as a fifth-year student, so I'm technically a sophomore. But I am from Colorado originally. I did spend some of my childhood growing up on the Navajo Reservation in Southeast Utah. And I left the reservation in early elementary school, lived in Colorado for the entirety of my life pretty much. And then when I came to Colorado, it was a difficult transition for me in high school, in middle school, in college, because there was nobody that looked like me. I didn't have any role models in my life. I didn't see Native women in influential positions. So I just sort of navigated my way throughout my education without a real focus. And so I just decided to pursue science. And science was my passion, and it still is. And now that I have taken the steps to become so engaged in the Native community at CSU, I'm really excited to use my scientific background in conjunction with my ethnic identity and my Native American background to ultimately help Native communities and serve as the role model I wish I had. So that kind of goes into why I'm so involved with the Native American Cultural Center here at CSU. When I was a freshman, I was introduced to the NAC through my peer mentor, through the North Star Peer Mentoring Program. And she brought me into the office. I felt like I was at home. I felt so welcomed. And this is exactly the type of programs that students of color need to feel welcomed and supported at CSU. So I decided to prioritize my involvement with the NAC. And so then I became a front desk receptionist. Then I was hired as a tutor for the Eagle Feather Tutoring Program. So I help students of color succeed in their STEM classes at no cost. And then after that, I decided to become a North Star peer mentor. So now I am able to connect with first-year self-identified Native students and bring them into the office and show them all of the resources that this campus has beyond the SDPS offices, things like food, scholarships, financial help, all areas of life through and beyond academics. And another significant program that I'm very passionate about at the Native American Cultural Center is Native Women's Circle. So it's basically a socio-cultural group every Tuesday where Native women can come into the office and share their experiences and talk about the struggles that they're going through and just find the support that is so crucial to feel like you can be successful here. And when I found this program, it inspired me so much. It made me take ownership over my identity and understand that it was an asset to my education. So then I became the coordinator, the student program coordinator for Native Women's Circle. And through my involvements with NAC, we were able to increase the attendance rate and just get so many more women to join. And so that's my job with the NAC. And then I also just started a research position in Dr. Dominique David Chavez's Indigenous Land and Data Stewards Lab in the Forestry Department. So even though the forestry department is not affiliated with my colleges, I wanted to really get an interdisciplinary understanding of different topics that relate to Indigenous sovereignty And through my work in the lab, we have basically been developing a framework to guide ethical Indigenous research using content analysis from Indigenous research guidelines and comparing them to federal Indigenous guidelines, which is something that is not really emphasized, especially in the science community, just holding those ethical standards. So it's been really, really amazing to be involved with her lab and also learn more about sustainability, environment. Yes. So yes, I've been learning a lot through her lab and also being more engaged with the Indigenous community at CSU. And I'm continuing to develop these skills so that I can be the best role model that I can be for other students of color, other Native women, other students pursuing science.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Najoni. That's I really appreciate your commitment to your community and all that you're doing in service. So very good group of women here. Natalie, would you share a little bit more about yourself?
Absolutely. So as Laura mentioned, I'm a fourth-year student and I'm majoring in international studies with a concentration in Asia. And then I have a couple of minors, French, Japanese, political science, and international development. Those are my 4 minors. And I guess I'll chat about where you can find me on campus. I've been in a couple different spheres throughout my 4 years here, but this year in particular, I'm serving in a couple of different roles. I guess my primary one is through the student government ASCSU. I'm Deputy Director of University Affairs, which has allowed me to become really involved on campus this semester and hold events to bring students of diverse backgrounds together and really chat about the things that CSU students care about the most. You can also find me in the Morgan's Grind coffee shop on campus in the library. I work there. I'm involved in a couple of different committees. I'm in the Student Success Advising Council as well as the Public Art Committee. And then let's see, what's my other one? Sorry, so there's a lot of different things going on. Oh yes, I work as a storytelling intern for the College of Liberal Arts. So if you ever read any of the source articles, I might have been the one who wrote it, which has been a great way to learn more about what's been going on campus and talk to some really amazing people that are doing great work here. And then in the community, the broader community, I work as an assistant French teacher at Access Elementary School, which is like 5 minutes away from campus. And I work in a preschool classroom, so teaching French to 4- and 5-year-olds, which is quite a task. Some of you might be able to imagine. I also volunteer with Village Earth, which is a local NGO focused on native lands reclamation and Indigenous land tenure. So yeah, I recently started volunteering with that organization, and it's been a wonderful way to see some of the things that is possible in the Fort Collins community. So yeah, that's where you can find me on campus and in Fort Collins. And then a little bit more about myself. I was born and raised in Littleton, Colorado, which is just south of Denver, but both of my parents are from a small town right outside of New Orleans. So I spent a lot of time in rural Louisiana growing up, and that rural heritage has inspired a lot of my research focuses here at CSU, which, as Laura mentioned, are rural resilience in Japan. And I've also added France into that mix recently. And I started researching rurality in the spring of 2021 under the supervision of Dr. Andrea Duffy, who at the time was Director of International Studies, and she is now currently serving as Assistant Vice Provost. So yay, Dr. Duffy. And then as I mentioned, I broadened that scope to include France in the fall of 2021, so last semester, through the completion of my honors thesis. And again, Dr. Duffy served as my supervisor there, as well as Dr. Mary Vogel, who's an assistant French professor here on campus. And since then, I've been able to complete about 30 pages of my research paper. And on February 16th, I presented at the International Symposium through CSU. So it's been wonderful to share my research with the community and my peers. And I'm hoping by the time I graduate in May that I'll be able to submit my research to an undergraduate journal for publication. Fingers crossed, quite the process. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. Thank you.
Fantastic. I'm just so impressed. It's nice to be in a group of our future leaders that are already doing so much to distinguish themselves. Katie, certainly last but not least, would you share a bit of your story?
Sure. Yeah, so as Laura said, I'm a PhD candidate, which just means I'm pretty far along in my PhD here in ecology. I am from New Hampshire originally, and growing up in New Hampshire, you have the ocean and the mountains and the trees. I just learned to love those landscapes, and I found that I wanted to protect them. And so I went to the University of New Hampshire for undergrad and studied earth science. So basically trying to understand the processes that go on our earth. And there I was really fortunate to do a few different research opportunities like some of these women have also been doing. And one of those was here at CSU. I did a summer research internship in the atmospheric science department here at CSU. And while I found that atmospheric science wasn't necessarily for me, I loved CSU, I loved Fort Collins. And so I applied to come back here for graduate school and was accepted and did a master's here, also in the ecology program on sustainable agriculture, looking at how we can add agricultural amendments to reduce the environmental impacts of agricultural activity. And now for my PhD, I study the response of soil carbon to climate change. And because the carbon in the soil is the largest amount of carbon we have on land, how it responds to climate change will have a really big impact on future climate change. So that's why I'm excited about studying that. Besides that, I've been very involved on campus in the Graduate Women in Science organization, which our goal is to increase the retention and success of women in science and non-majority genders in science here at CSU. And I've also just been involved in my department, in my program, and I have done quite a bit of mentoring of undergraduates. And I just really love to see people succeed in the sciences. So that's me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Exciting things, and climate change is a hot topic for everyone. So thanks for being part of that community. As you can see, these students weren't asked to participate at random. Another special piece about each of them is that these women have already received or are currently competing for national fellowships, thankfully not against each other. Katie, since you just spoke, would you mind telling us a little bit more? That I see that you are an NSF GRFP fellow as well as a PEO scholar. Can you explain to us what that means?
Yeah, just a lot of letters. But the NSF GRFP stands for the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship Program. And this is a nationally competitive fellowship program through the National Science Foundation that awards graduate students 3 years of funding for a stipend and also for tuition. And basically it's awarded to students who demonstrate high potential to be high achieving scientists. So I won that back in 2019. It's funded my PhD so far. So that's been really fortunate and has allowed me to really pursue what I want to for my studies and not be limited by a specific research project that my advisor might be funding me on. And the PEO Scholars Program is from the PEO Sisterhood, which is an international group of women who strive to make women succeed. And I was nominated by the Estes Park chapter, and there's a group of wonderful women up at Estes Park who are part of this group. And I got to meet with them, and they interviewed me and nominated me. I was fortunate to win the national prize. And yeah, they've just been so wonderful, and brought me out for Christmas lunch and like all these very sweet things. So it's been great to be supported financially by these two programs, and it's provide me a lot of freedom to do research that I'm excited about. So
wonderful. That's great to hear. And I love to hear these themes of women mentoring women. So thank you. So I noticed Anna and Najoni, you're both Udall nominees for 2 different categories. Could you tell us a little bit more about that fellowship and what that means exactly, what you're working towards? Let's start with Najoni, and then we'll move to Anna.
Yeah, so the Udall Scholarship is for students who exhibit potential to serve their communities as leaders in tribal health, public policy, and environmental stewardship. So because I came from a scientific background and plan to attend medical school and become a physician and work on tribal lands, I was nominated for the tribal health category. But because I'm working in the lab and learning how the environment really relates to health, especially on tribal lands where there's a lot of cases of environmental waste and environmental racism, those are two very complementary categories, especially when approaching tribal health from a scientific standpoint. So yes, the Udall Scholarship is awarded to 55 students nationally. So I'm very grateful to be nominated, and it's very amazing to be on this panel as well, just being able to talk about it. So that's all I have to say. Go on to you, Anna.
Yeah, I feel like you mostly covered it, but I am a nominee in the category for like the environmental category of the scholarship. So that's really for undergraduates interested in maybe like conservation and environmental issues and pursuing some type of career or form of leadership in those areas. So that includes demonstrating commitment to the environment through maybe your campus and community activities and pursuing a career related to that. As I somewhat mentioned when I introduced myself, sustainability in the environment is something I'm really passionate about. And I really decided in the last year that that's what I wanted to dedicate my career and just kind of my life to. So as a STEM major, I'm focused on more the research side of environmental issues, and my work in the USDA lab has really helped me learn about biodiversity and direct my focus towards that, which has been super fascinating. So that's something that was kind of like the main focus of my application, this idea of protecting biodiversity and why I think that's so important. I was selected as a nominee a couple weeks ago, and after many final edits, I finally submitted my final application actually yesterday. So I was just really honored to be nominated for that. And I think the Udall Scholarship is a really amazing program and opportunity for students. So it's been a great experience, regardless of what happens with final decisions. I've learned a lot through it, and the Office for Scholarship and Fellowship Advising has been so helpful in this process and the scholarship process.
Oh, so wonderful. Fun fact, I'm connected to the Udalls through family, and I think they're going to be very honored to have applicants such as you. I think you will represent what they want very well. Let's see. So let's move to Natalie. Natalie, you're a semi-finalist for both the Fulbright and Princeton and Asia fellowships. Can you share a little bit more about those?
Yes, absolutely. I'll start with Fulbright. So Fulbright's a nationally competitive scholarship, and they offer funding to almost every country in the world. And they cover a couple different things, either a one-year independent research project, or they fund master's degrees. So that'll be like 2 years, 1 year, 2 year, depending on the specific program. And they fund English teaching positions abroad. Those are limited to certain countries. And I applied for an independent research project that would be located in Japan. And as of January, I advanced to semifinalist, and I'll actually probably find out in the next 2 or 3 weeks if I'm actually awarded the grant. So fingers crossed. I really hope I get it. And my research proposal that I submitted to Fulbright would be working with Okayama University, which Okayama Prefecture is in between sort of Osaka and Hiroshima. If anybody's familiar with Japanese geography, it's central Japan. And with the university, I'd be conducting ethnographic research in 2 nearby villages. And the goal of my research would be to identify key factors that have created resiliency in those villages in Japan. As some of you may know, Japan is struggling with a declining birth rate and an aging population, and rural areas are especially hard hit by that. But there are 2 amazing villages in Okayama Prefecture that have really bounced back and are models for resiliency, both in Japan and internationally. So my work, if I was awarded the grant, would be to study those 2 places and learn from the communities there about how we can apply their methods of resiliency domestically here in the States and on a global scale. And then the second grant that I've moved into the semifinalist stage for is Princeton in Asia. And this grant funds 1 year of employment in a country, any country in Asia, basically based on host organizations and what's available. So there's a lot of different positions for that. There's teaching positions, business positions, community development positions, really just whatever host organizations need. They reach out to Princeton Asia and ask for nominations for scholars to fulfill those roles. And the position I'm most interested in is a position in Miyagi, Japan, which is northern Japan, where you would be working at a locally run sake brewery, which is kind of interesting. This sake brewery in particular is 5 generations. It goes 5 generations back. The same family's been running it, and it's 85% female run, which is amazing that there's women running a sake brewery in rural Japan. And so if I were to be offered a position somewhere in Asia, I'll likely hear back from Princeton sometime in April or May about that. So I'm hopeful to be accepted to one of these grants and be able to spend a year abroad after graduating in May. So yeah.
Great, fabulous, wonderful, wonderful. So what some people may not realize is that unlike scholarships, which are awarded based on past achievement, fellowships are awarded to students based on their potential. I'd love to hear from each of you about your career aspirations and what you hope to do in the future. Natalie, why don't you go ahead and start with us?
Sure, I'd be happy to start. So after spending some time conducting research, I'm not sure if I want to do 1 year, 2 year, just kind of whatever opportunities come my way. After spending some time doing research and working abroad, I'd like to go on to graduate study. And I'm hoping to study rural development and international development specifically. There's a lot of amazing programs both in the States and abroad that specialize on rural development and how to combine that with international development goals. So I'm hoping to enter one of those programs. And then after finishing a graduate degree, I'd like to go on to work as a community development specialist. So ideally, I'd be working with communities both domestically and abroad to promote resiliency and to encourage sustainable development economically, culturally, and environmentally. I'm also very interested, like many of the women here, in conservation and sustainability. And I think a lot of issues can be fixed from like the bottom up. So making sure that our communities that are still in the process of getting to where they want to be, making sure that we're implementing sustainable practices from the start rather than going back retroactively and fixing those institutions would be wonderful to contribute to. So really, I just hope to spend a lot of time traveling and learning from all of the amazing communities and stewards that are in our land. So yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you. Anna, would you share a little bit about your career path?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's funny, I feel like this is something we should all have a pretty polished answer to because it gets asked in a lot of applications. Personally, I plan on pursuing a research career in biochemistry and genetics, but more specifically, I want to protect the world's biodiversity and use my knowledge to sustain ecosystems. Biodiversity is a really important part of Earth, and it's under threat due to many species being at risk of extinction and being impacted by climate change. So I want to use genetic techniques to help improve genetic diversity in these at-risk species, which will help these populations adapt to environmental changes and the inevitable impact of climate change. So beyond my undergraduate degree, I think my next steps will be a postgraduate degree of some kind related to ecological genomics and genetics to give me like a background for this type of research career, but nothing's completely set yet. Obviously, I have some time as a second year. I would also really love to spend some time abroad or engage in international collaborative research because I think these kinds of environmental issues really go very far beyond borders, and we need a lot of cooperation to succeed. So that's kind of the plan for that. But I did want to say on this note of plans for the future and students who may be interested in applying for some of these scholarships, you don't have to have it all completely figured out. I know for me, when these questions come up, I'm like, I need to have this step-by-step plan. and have it all laid out. And some people do have that plan, and so many props to them. That's amazing. But I think the selection committees kind of know that you're a young student and plans change. So they really want to hear more about like your passions, your aspirations, and creating a narrative based on that than like this complete plan of the next 5 to 10 years of your life, because I definitely don't have that.
No worries. No, I don't have it either. And if you're doing it right, hopefully you're always learning and pivoting to the next opportunity. So that's wonderful. Of course, I love to hear everything that, has a global impact, since I've dedicated a lot of my career to international education. And yet I also think it's really important to think locally with all that we've learned. Najoni, tell us a little bit about your career aspirations.
Yeah, so going off of what Anna said, me and my career aspirations have definitely had a rocky relationship, just because I really didn't have a clear path for me for most of my education. I knew I had a lot of interests. I knew I loved science. I knew I loved the environment. And I knew that I wanted to do something that would benefit my community. So that's kind of why I got involved in so many different things, because it's important to diversify your portfolio and get involved in different programs and experiment and see what you like. Like, for example, I'm in College of Veterinary Medicine and Biomedical Science, but I'm also in College of Microbiology, which is more towards research. And I'm also associated with the Forestry Department in the Warner College of Natural Resources. And then I'm also associated with the Ethnic Studies Department through my Indigenous Studies minor. So for me, it's just been using the resources at this university to really learn more about what you want to do and what makes you happy, and being able to connect with people who inspire you to do whatever you want to do. So through my involvements, I've met women who are leading research labs. I've met women leading studies to address environmental public health issues on reservations. I've met women who are publishing research papers on rangeland stewardship in the Southwest. And these are all people that I was able to meet through getting involved in as many programs as I could while I was here at CSU. Because, yeah, being able to have those experiences will let you put together a narrative and ultimately get a better idea of what you do want to do, because that's what really matters. So going back to the original question, I basically want to use my passion for science to serve my community as a physician, and in doing so, kind of serving as that bridge between Western medicine and traditional medicine, because a lot of times there can be a miscommunication there, especially given the historical context of Western research and Indigenous communities, and also being able to expand that to research, because the field of research itself it just needs some decolonization. So that's definitely been one of my biggest priorities, is being able to use my passion for science, STEM, and supporting, advocating for Indigenous communities, and ultimately inspiring other Native women to pursue whatever they want to do and serve their community as leaders, and take the initiative to get scholarships, ask for help, ask for advising, contact the scholarship center. Like, people are here to help you and they want to see you succeed for sure.
Absolutely. Great reminders. Thank you. Katie, how about you? What are your career aspirations?
Yeah, going off what Anna and Najoni were saying, like, I came into undergrad knowing I wanted something with the environment, but like not much more than that. And I had an amazing mentor my freshman year who pulled me into research in her group. And that's when I discovered what research was, and that I enjoyed it, and thought about going to grad school for the first time. Like, that was never even in my stratosphere when I was starting undergrad. And because of that, I'm really passionate about mentoring and teaching, and like ensuring that all people are aware of this opportunity if they want it. Right now, grad school is not for everyone, but if it is for you, I want you to know that you can do it, and give you those opportunities to get there. And so that really plays into my career aspirations of becoming a teaching professor at a university. I am really passionate about teaching, a variety of undergraduates about environmentalism, about environmental science, earth science, and trying to instill some care for the environment in a large group of people, but also trying to encourage critical thinking that can allow them to take that to any job they might want to pursue. And along with that, of course, the mentoring comes along with that, mentoring students and helping them achieve their goals. And of course, finally, is the research part of that. And I'd love to continue doing climate change research. So.
That's great. And I'm going to do a little different direction on the next question. I like this theme of maybe some of the mentorship or direction that others have given you in your educational path. Would anyone like to share an example of something that someone's done for you that's really helped give you a leg up in your academic pathways, or just in knowing yourselves better as far as what comes next? Natalie, please.
Yeah, I'd be happy to start us off. Actually, the most influential part of my career here at CSU has been my independent research that I conducted with Dr. Duffy. And I think I started that my sophomore year and it stretched into my junior year. But I kind of felt like I was going through the motions when I first started. Transitioning into a university setting is very challenging, and sometimes the only thing you feel like you can do is take your classes, show up, and do the best that you can. But in reality, if you want to know yourself better and have a clear direction for post-graduation, you really do have to seek out those extracurricular opportunities, and you have to take risks. When I started my independent study, I didn't know if it was going to be something that deeply interested me. It was just like, I kind of like this, let me try it, I guess. And it's been a springboard to everything else that I've been doing since. It's given me the confidence to apply to things like Fulbright and to submit a research proposal that I felt very confident about, because I had that opportunity to study with a professor in a one-on-one setting and take advantage of the expertise that these people have, because they've been studying their whole lives. They are professional students in a way, like they are constantly learning and they're here to mentor you. So not being afraid to ask a professor to guide you and say, I'm interested in this thing, but how can I explore this deeper? Because the opportunities are there. You just have to seek them out.
Thank you, and good for you for recognizing that professors they welcome student questions and student engagement. Any other examples of maybe someone or something that inspired you or helped you get where you're going?
I can go.
So,
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind to me is my family and my parents. Not only did they inspire me, but they also really gave me the ability to embark on this path, which I know I'm so privileged to have and so grateful for. But thanks to my parents and their support and the experiences I grew up with, I was able to pursue this path. They really let me choose my own way. They were there for me, but I was able to make my own decisions and figure out what I wanted, which I think was really important. When I went through my high school courses and became so interested in science and the complexity of genetics, they helped me look for programs that might be a good fit for me. And then when I really wanted to go to CSU and thought that was going to be the best place for me, they supported me in that. As I mentioned, both my parents are veterans, so we moved around a lot. So I learned a lot from that lifestyle too. Number one, I learned that your family is your family no matter where you are. And number two, I learned that there is a whole world out there worth seeing. So obviously I'm from Ohio, but I was not afraid to move across the country and come to CSU because I know that I would still have my connections from home. And it was a new adventure I was so excited for. And my parents also gave me a lot of opportunities to experience the outdoors and appreciate the environment. And I think coming to CSU, one of the most sustainable universities in the country, with that kind of background is really what ignited my passion for sustainability and environmental issues and made me decide to focus my education and career on that.
thank you. Katie or Najoni, do you have anything else to share?
I can just elaborate on my earlier comment in that, like, like I said, I had no intention of going to research, and really this professor, like, I went to meet with her about class and she said, "Hey, you seem like you'd be great for research." Like, literally changed my whole life. Like, I would not be here in grad school, like all this stuff. It makes me like a little bit like choked up, like she like completely changed my life. And I think that's so powerful. And I think that's why I want to do it for other people. But yeah, I've just continued to have really wonderful, and they've just all happened to be women. I don't strictly seek out women mentors. They have happened to be women. And I've had amazing women mentors who have, really fought for me to succeed. And also, like, which I think is so important, valued me as an entire person, right? Like, didn't just see me as a scientist or their intern or whatever. They saw me as a human being who had like dreams and wants, and like fought to help me get to those things. So yeah, I am endlessly thankful for all my mentors, and they've all been wonderful. So
exciting. Thank you for sharing too, a little personal bit of it. Najoni, please.
Yeah, I completely agree with Katie. Through my involvement with the Indigenous Land and Data Stewards Lab, I found an amazing mentor who cared for me as a whole person and wanted to see me succeed. And that's the case with most of the mentors here at CSU. So when I was thinking about what I wanted to do and looking for role models, I was really drawn to people who shared the same values as me and were doing things that inspired me and advocating for the things that I think that should, or things that should be advocated for. So that's why I got so involved with the Native American Cultural Center, because those offices have mentorship programs. There are upperclassmen students who can guide you just through getting acclimated to the campus, understanding how to succeed in your classes, but also getting involved in those experiential learning communities. So my mentors in the NAC really helped me get to where I am, but also taking the initiative to seek out mentors in research positions and also in the classroom. Professors, they have a lot of great resources and a lot of good experience.
I want to circle back to something that came up a little bit earlier, just because it's a personal interest to me. I know some of you are working on additional projects, maybe that you just learned about. Anna, you shared right before we started that you'll be doing an internship in Germany. Would you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so that was another thing I applied for and learned about through the scholarship office, actually, and had a lot of help applying for that. So the program is the DAAD Rise Germany program, and kind of the whole point of it is offering STEM research internships to Canadian and American students, and offering opportunities for them to go to Germany and do some work in labs over there. So the way the process works is you get your application all together, you submit like a CV, you have your transcripts and everything, and then you write basically what is like a cover letter to, you can choose 3 projects to apply for, and you write kind of like a cover or inspiration letter to each of them, just kind of explaining why you want to work in the lab, what your background is, that kind of thing, and why you're interested in that specific project. So I sent in my application, and then a couple weeks ago at like 4:30 in the morning here, because Germany is 8 hours ahead, I got the email. And I saw that email also very early in the morning because I had like some gut feeling to just like check my email, and was really excited. So I am going to be working in a town called Gießen, which is kind of near Frankfurt in Germany. And I'm working at the university there, and I'm doing a project related to the histone protein, which is involved in mitosis and the organization of chromosomes. So it's very, very biochemical, very related to a lot of the techniques I've learned in the lab, in lab classes here at CSU. So I feel like I'm at least somewhat prepared. So that's going to be my summer. And I would definitely say to just apply, because that was kind of my mindset. I'm like, it can't hurt to apply to something like this. And I am so excited to spend my time abroad. I mean, I mentioned how I really want to participate in international research and go abroad and experience that. So this is kind of like really my first opportunity to do that and do some lab work that is very directly related to my major. So yeah, so that's kind of what's happening. I'm still figuring it all out. It's a lot to manage moving to Germany for 3 months and finding that out, but yeah, I'm really excited for it.
Good for you. Good for you. There's so much evidence, so much data out there showing that students that complete internships really um, can do a lot academically, first and foremost, but also it launches your career pathway. So each one of you seem to be really making the most of your time at CSU and also internationally. So good for you. Let's go ahead and we'll wrap up on a lighter note. Always interesting to hear, like balance is important. What do you all do for fun? How about let's start with Katie.
Yeah, so a part of the reason I applied to go to grad school here, my advisor's great, the program's great, all of that is amazing, but I love the outdoors. And so moving to Colorado was a big pull for me. And I love to hike and to backpack. And I actually just got permits last week to hike the John Muir Trail, which is this 200-mile backpacking trail in California that goes through Yosemite National Park and Kings Canyon National Park. So I'm very excited to be doing that this summer. So yeah, that's something that I like to do in my free time.
Great, that's on my bucket list. Good for you. Great. Nijoni, what are you going to be doing? What do you do for fun?
So, of course, I love being outside. I mean, we live in Colorado in this beautiful state. I feel like, I mean, it's a beautiful day today. You can't see it, but it's amazing. And it's going to snow later this week. So Colorado always has those fun surprises. But something that I am looking forward to this summer that is going to be a lot of fun is I'm going to be a camp counselor for this iStar camp, which stands for Indigenous Science, Technology, and Art, and Resilience, the R. So basically, I'm enrolled in an independent study right now, working to design a 2-week curriculum for the camp, because it's for Indigenous youth in Fort Collins, and basically just facilitating hands-on activities that are grounded in traditional practice and involving elders to participate and share, from a variety of different tribes to get a diverse representation. And I'm looking forward to this so much because not only do I get to help design the camp, but I also get to be a counselor and work with these kids because I know what it was like to, be the only kid of color in the classroom and to have those isolating experiences. So ultimately, I love being able to use what I've learned and give back to the community. I've had a few camp counselor positions that they're just so fun. Yeah. But that's definitely something I'm looking forward to this summer. Being in spaces like that just makes me feel so much more appreciative of the things that I've learned, and also just being able to feel like a kid again and playing outside and hiking around and things like that, doing crafts and arts. So yeah.
Oh, that's great. No, definitely. I love it. The mentorship is happening, and mentorship can be fun. So good for you. Anna, what do you do for fun?
Yeah, so I can really echo Katie on things in the outdoors. Basically, anything that is active and outdoors, I will do it. I go for walks, I run, I swim, I bike, I climb, I hike, I ski, snowboard, anything and everything. I'm up for any kind of adventure and always looking for opportunities to explore. Lucky for me, CSU has all kinds of ways to get involved and do that kind of thing. Funny enough, I'm actually going ice climbing and backcountry skiing this weekend through the rec center's outdoor programs, which is really cool. And I'm really excited for that. But being active is kind of how I relax. So I really enjoy being able to go to all these amazing places we have right outside our back door in Fort Collins.
All right, good for you and for making the most too of the student activities. Great. Natalie, what do you do for fun?
Sure. And I won't repeat everybody. Of course, I like going outside as well. I love to hike and do rock climbing. But recently, I've also gotten very interested in some more artistic hobbies. I do pottery through the Fort Collins Pottery Studio. I like to crochet. I like to paint. I like to do photography. Not any good at any of these things, but they are fun. So hopefully, I'll get a little bit better with more practice. And I guess something this summer that I'm looking forward to that I think will be really fun is I'm in the running for an internship with the Smithsonian in DC, working with the National Museum of Asian Art, which is the internship involves like art conservation and cultural preservation. So sort of combining my academic interests with my hobby interests, and I think it'll make for a very fun combo. So yeah.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, good. We'll wish the best for you with the Smithsonian, and nice to hear just how you all have good balance, right? You're very, very busy women, and yet you don't underestimate how important it is to have a broader life. It has been such a pleasure getting to know you. Each one of you brings something special to the world, and I appreciate you very much. Thank you as well for joining me today. It also gives a great opportunity for our donors to get a peek in your lives and get a glimpse at our next generation of leaders and what you are doing and what you will do. So thank you. Keep up the good work. Thanks for viewing this session to all of our viewers for today. I hope that that you will enjoy the rest of the programming available through Gather on the Women in Philanthropy website. And thank you so much, and go Rams.